Did Karen?
Yeah.
Did you have any interaction with Howard Zinn about Evan?
No.
But you know their his writings and the play and so forth. Yeah. Well, Paul was at our production in '87, and Howard was there in '89, and in between, we were in touch with Candace Falk, which we're still in touch with. She sends us a card every year, And I remember something that Paul said to me about Candace, which was very, very funny, because Candace stumbled on these letters of Emma Goldman and Ben Reitman going into a shop, a record shop, I think it was, and she had a dog with her that was named Red Emma Goldman. And Paul said to me, if I hear that about that dog one more time, I'm going to throw up. She talks about it all the time. But tell us, if you can, your reactions and your thoughts and adventures with Emma Goldman.
Oh, I mean, for those who don't know, my father was a scholar of anarchism and wrote a number of books about the topic, and was working on a dual biography of Emma Goldman and Alexander Berkman. But he became ill, and when he realized he was not going to be able to live to complete the book, he asked me to do it, so I took it over, had his notes, and some of the rough drafts of some of the chapters, but in order to do it properly, I had to go back from the beginning and read everything they ever wrote, and literally over 1,000 articles and their letters, and took a number of years, but eventually the book came out hardcover a couple of years ago, published by Harvard, and it was a really extraordinary experience because I became, it's actually out in paperback now.
Oh, good.
It was just wonderful to be able to see my father's work this way, and also learn so much about them. And it was wonderful to see see your performances, because to see it interpreted this way, I mean, you really sort of capture the heart and the soul of it, and the brains, in this very clever and fascinating way. So it was thoroughly entertaining for me, particularly after all those years in front of the computer, to see it in such a lively and delightful fashion. So thank you.
Thank you. You made a lot of trips in your research. One of them was to Saint Cloud, you said?
Yeah, I did. That's where it was when Sasha lived in France. He lived in a house for a number of years in Saint Cloud, which is about 15 minutes outside Paris. It's a short train trip. So when I found the house, that was,
you found the house?
Yeah, it's still there. So that, those sorts of things are incredibly exciting for me. I don't know if it means anyone, but I wanted to see it with my own eyes, so I tried to do that as much as possible.
We found the house, or actually we found the place where the house was in Saint-Tropez, where Emma had lived, and it wasn't there anymore. It was like a parking lot or something. But we found people who had family pictures of that time when the house was still there. And we also found, I think I told you, we found in Nice, we went to the cemetery and we went to the archives. And you remember the man said, "You're here on vacation, visiting cemeteries? Oh, that's nice, And we went into the archives and we found an entry for Alexander Bergman Schmidt, which was one of his aliases, and that was indeed where he had been buried. But the grave had been recycled.
They did that a lot.
Yeah.
Yes, we went from house to house. We walked up and down in the hot sun in Saint-Tropez, was it? Saint-Tropez, for an hour and a half, looking for the house, and to finally find someone who actually had photographs and who knew what we were talking about. It felt so good.
It's such a treasure. It's just a wonderful thing to see those photographs from that period.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Sasha actually committed suicide on Emma's birthday. Tell us a little bit about that. You probably know more than anybody.
He was about 65, and he was depressed. He was having trouble. He was ill. He had prostate problems, and his girlfriend was ill, and he was having trouble making money. And he had been moving from smaller and smaller and less expensive homes, and the cause wasn't going as well as he had hoped. And he just sort of lost his interest in living. And so he was supposed to go to Emma's birthday party, and instead he telephoned her and sent her a note saying, he wouldn't be able to make it, and then he shot himself and died the next day. Shot himself, and an anarchist comrade told my father that he was always fascinated by weapons and was always terrible at using them. It was a sad death, but when he died, Emma was by his side, and she was devastated and wasn't sure she could go on. And then course, the cause brought her back into it, but for a number of months there, she said she was living beneath the dark cloud of losing him. She said the one thing she didn't think she could ever manage to survive was the loss of her best friend, but she did.
We brought that in one scene, actually, remember Douglas, kind of a flash forward, because our piece takes place in 33, 34, and he died at 36.
He died, yeah.
So there's a kind of she talks about suicidal impulses, and then there's a slide that mentions that Sasha committed suicide 2 years later. That's as far as we were able to do that. But as you say, then she got wrapped up in the cause. Actually, it was the cause of anarchist Spain, wasn't it? Yeah, and that's a whole other chapter.
Yeah, it totally revived her, and she was in Spain 3 times, and she was in London, and gave her the lease on life, and she was thrilled to sort of see it in action.
Particularly in Barcelona, I think,
yeah,
right?
Barcelona.
Yeah.
And she traveled around the countryside a little bit.
She became known as the mother of the Spanish exiles. Then came to Canada, I think primarily because she thought that she wanted to be ready to come back to America if they ever let her in again, which they didn't until she was dead. But she died in Toronto, and we met. Did you meet Arthur Bartolotti?
I never met him.
Aha.
We met him in 1994, very end of his life. He was in his 90s already. And he told us about how he said that she died in his arms. That's quite accurate. I think she passed out in his arms, and then they carried her to the hospital, and she died a few days after that.
She had a stroke in February, and then she collapsed, and then she was ill for a while, and she had a second stroke on May 6th, and then she died on May 14th. But he said that he would drive her. She was so longing to go back to the United States that he would drive her along the border.
Yes.
And she would sit and she would look out at America and weep. And he said it was as if she was looking at a lost lover. Then he realized how deeply she loved America.
This is Arthur
Bartolotti, yes.
In an interview with your father?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, his original name was Bartolotti, and changed it to Bartel.
Right.
And he was her last cause.
That's right.
Because there was a movement to deport him back to fascist Italy, where he would certainly have been killed. And she organized a committee to stop that deportation. And so she saved his life. Right?
Yeah, no, she did. She was credited entirely for being the force behind what got him out of that and saved him from going back to Italy. And she said definitely would have been killed.
So there's such an awful lot to know and to learn and to take courage from this incredible person, this force of nature. That's all you got to play.